Finally, here are the hardware options that will be available at launch. We'll release Nintendo Switch 2, as well as a bundle that includes a digital version of Mario Kart World. For more details, please check the official Nintendo Switch 2 website, which goes live later today. We appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I saw this meme earlier online today, and I think it sums up the reaction of the Nintendo community for the Switch 2 pretty well, because I feel like we've all kind of felt the same way. This is it. Everyone during the Direct, everybody was happy and excited and looking forward to the Switch 2. However, it wasn't until they announced the price of the Switch 2 along with the games of the Switch 2 that everybody started feeling some type of way, including myself. $449.99 here in the US for the Switch 2 versus $499 if you're getting the bundle with Mario Kart World. So essentially you're saving like $30 by buying the bundle instead of buying the console and the game separately. So obviously everybody's gonna opt in for the bundle. However, the real question here is Nintendo making a big mistake by selling the Switch 2 for $499 or $449.99? Now before we answer the question, by looking back at errors, we could foresee the pitfalls of the future. So is Nintendo Switch 2 going to be a pitiful disaster, or will it be a success like its predecessor, the Switch? Let's take a step back first and go all the way back to 2006 when Nintendo released the Nintendo Wii. So Nintendo Wii was, at the time, Nintendo's most innovative console. It was the successor to the Nintendo GameCube, and it came packed with a lot of great innovation, like motion controls, the Wiimote. It was still quite a humble console given the fact that it came out in 2006 and technology still hadn't really boomed yet, but given the fact that it was still Nintendo's second best-selling console next to the Switch. The Nintendo Wii sold a staggering 101 million units worldwide, which is incredible. It's a big number. Could you imagine even a million sales, let alone 100 million? And the Nintendo Wii retailed for $249.99. Now, if you take inflation into consideration and you were to do the math, it would be the equivalent of about $380 today in 2025. Now, fast forward 6 years from 2006, it's 2012, and Nintendo are getting ready to release their next generational console, the Nintendo Wii U. Now, this is where Nintendo made a big mistake. Now, I personally believe that the Nintendo Wii U did not sell the same way the Nintendo Wii sold, not even remotely close to the sales of the Nintendo Wii, due to how Nintendo marketed the Nintendo Wii U. The Nintendo Wii U came out 6 years later. However, if you were to ask me, it was probably due to the branding of the Wii U that caused it to flop. Many people who already owned the Wii were not convinced enough to buy the Wii U. However, if you look back at it and you compare both consoles side by side, you will see that the Wii U is actually a significant upgrade compared to the Nintendo Wii. Just taking some specs into consideration, the Wii had a single core CPU, whereas the Wii U had a tri-core CPU. The Wii U GPU was roughly a 14 times increase compared to the Nintendo Wii. The RAM on the Wii was 88 megabytes versus 2 gigabytes on the Wii U, which is a 22 times increase compared to the Wii. The storage on the Nintendo Wii was 512 megabytes compared compared to 8 gigabytes on the standard Wii U and 32 gigabytes on the Wii U Black Edition. The Wii played games in 480p standard definition, whereas the Wii U could play games in 1080p high definition. Not only did the Wii U keep the Wiimote from the Wii, but it also introduced a gamepad, which introduced gaming on a next level, interactive with touch screens and the ability to use motion control with the gamepad. So it was a significant upgrade compared to the Wii. And when the Wii U came out, it came out at $299 for the standard 2 gigabyte Wii U, and it came out at $349 for the 8 gigabyte Wii U with the bundle of Nintendo Land. Now, if you were to compare the Switch versus the Switch 2, could we say that the upgrades for them is such a shift to justify the price tag? Essentially, you were paying $50 more compared to the Wii for the regular Wii U, and you were paying an additional $100 for the 8 gigabyte Black Wii U, but you were also getting Nintendo Land, which I believe retailed for $49.99. And by the way, Nintendo Land was one of the best games on Nintendo Wii U. It actually perfectly showcases the capability of the Wii U gamepad and motion controls for the Nintendo Wii U. So Nintendo did an excellent job with releasing that game. And similar with the Wii, when they released Wii Sports, and that was like essentially the launch title along, I think it was actually a game given for free with the Wii. It showcased the abilities of the Wii perfectly. If you were to compare that, right, to the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2, could we say that the upgrades on the Switch 2 and the price increase are justified? Well, let's take a look real quick. So the Nintendo Switch was released back in March of 2017. It came with 4 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of storage with up to 2 terabytes of expandable storage. It came with a 6.2-inch LCD display that plays games up to 720p wall handheld and up to 1080p wall docked. The battery life was roughly 2.5 to 6.5 hours, and it came with detachable Joy-Cons, motion control, and HD rumble. Fast forward 8 years, the Nintendo Switch 2 is rumored to have 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM, so essentially double if not triple the RAM compared to the Nintendo Switch. Switch 2 is said to have 256 gigabytes of internal storage, which is 8 times that of the Nintendo Switch, with up to 2 terabytes of expandable storage. It comes with a 7.9 LCD display that plays up to 1080p 60 FPS handheld, while also up to 4K 30 FPS, maybe 60 FPS while docked. Most games won't be able to play 4K anyways, but for the games that will be able to play 4K, they'll be able to play up to 4K 30 FPS while docked. Now, the battery life is rumored to be between 4 to 6 hours. I've also seen rumors where people have said it's between 2.5 to 6 hours, which is the same as the Switch. But I guess we won't really know, and I guess it's dependable on how you play with your Switch. It's more so a subjective thing, but that's roughly the ballpark as rumored. It comes with upgraded Joy-Cons with a new mouse ability, and I'm sure we'll be seeing the capabilities of it with Metroid Prime 4, as well as other Nintendo Switch titles that might be coming out that require the mouse capability. And when the Switch was released, it was released at $299 USDs, and the Switch 2 is set to be released for $449 USD, so a $150 price increase. Now, if we were to take inflation into consideration, the $299 back in 2017 is roughly the equivalent of about $380, $390, so about a $90 increase on additional to the Switch. Nintendo is selling the Switch 2 for an additional $150. That is a disgustingly high increase compared to the Wii U versus the Wii's price tag. The Wii U was a $50 increase for the standard Wii U and a $100 increase for the 8 gigabyte Wii U, along with a full-fledged game. And not only that, but the fact that also the games are going up by $20. Now, I've seen a lot of mixed opinions online. Some people are saying it's not a big deal, people will buy it anyways, and a lot of people are just outright upset about this. Honestly, it stung me when I learned about the price of the Switch 2 as well as their games. Nintendo's also releasing Switch 2 game editions, which are essentially games that you own for your Nintendo Switch, but you're able to play those games with slightly, just very ever slightly extra content, and you could play them up to 4K. I mean, certain games, like we know Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Breath of the Wild, you can play it 4K docked. But the caveat here is you have to pay them money. That's right. It's not a free thing. When does Nintendo ever do anything nice for its fans out of the kindness of their heart? That's right, they never do, because we're so loyal and dedicated that They don't need to do anything for us to earn our loyalty. It's just their games are so freaking good that we're gonna just invest our time and money into it regardless. Unfortunately, that's how it is. So when you really look at it, right, after everything I've just explained, is the Switch 2 a bigger upgrade than the Wii U was to the Wii? If you were to ask me, I would say no, 100%. Without a shadow of a doubt, not. The Wii to the Wii U jump was a more dramatic increase. It had a massive RAM and GPU increase. It shifted from standard definition to HD, and it had a new controller concept. It transformed Nintendo's hardware from a niche underpowered box to a more conventional console. The Switch to the Switch 2, while impressive 4K 120 FPS, it's just a slight evolution of something that was already well founded. There really is no new innovation with the Switch 2 compared to the Switch. The Switch today has sold almost 115 million units worldwide, so it even surpasses the Wii in terms of sales. Whereas when you compare the Wii to the Wii U, 101 million sales versus 13 million sales worldwide. We're most likely going to be looking at something similar when it comes to the Switch and the Switch 2, and it's not because the simple fact that the Switch 2 is not that much of a significant upgrade to the Switch, but is also the fact that literally Nintendo are pricing it at a $150 increase. And not only that, but if you own games for the Switch and you want to play them in higher definition, or you're trying to play new titles for the Switch, you're going to have to pay $80 per title. You could definitely say that the Wii U compared to the Wii is about a 10 to 15 times upgrade compared to the Switch 2 versus the Switch. The Switch 2 is about maybe a 2 to 3 times more of an upgrade to the Switch. I think this time around, Nintendo learned from their mistake. Nintendo, instead of marketing this as a Switch Pro or a Switch X or a Switch U, I think Nintendo learned from their mistake with the Wii U. Had they marketed the Wii U as the Wii 2, I feel like it would have driven sales even higher. For example, if you were to take a look at the iPhone 13 and then the iPhone 14, you will look at them and you will say that they are literally the exact same phone. And it is. They are literally, from a hardware perspective, they are the exact same phone. It's just what's inside the internal hardware is what distinguishes both of these devices. And even then, it's not like a significant, massive, mind-changing, day-to-day, I'll notice the upgrades from both of these phones. It's not. But both of these phones still sold millions and millions of units. Now, had Apple marketed this phone as the 13S, anyone who had the 13 would have never upgraded. Or people who might have even had the 11 or the 12 most likely wouldn't have upgraded because, well, it's just the 13S. But when you say it's the 14, they're like, it's a brand new phone, it's the 14. And I think that's the approach Nintendo is doing here with the Nintendo Switch. Because when you think about it, right, Nintendo could have easily given us the Switch 2 years ago, but they chose not to. They gave us the OLED Switch, which was a nice, beautiful upgrade in terms of having the ability to play your Switch games on an OLED display. Instead of it being a 6.2 inch display, you were getting a 7-inch display. But that was really it. It was just a minor aesthetic upgrade. But for tech enthusiasts, like at least myself, I could tell a massive difference between an OLED display and an LCD display. So for me, this was like a dream come true to be able to play games on a rich OLED display. That's just the thing with companies though. Companies do this purposefully because they know how to tap into the human psychology. If the companies willed, they could easily deliver the best piece of tech like Apple or Samsung. They could literally put together the best smartphone that they could ever produce and give it to you today. They have the resources to do it. They have the funding and the manpower and the research and development teams behind it. They really do. But the thing is, if they do that, they're losing out on the reoccurring customer. That's where they get you. Because if they give you a slight upgrade, incremental upgrades year over year or every few years, guess what? You're gonna keep coming back and consuming that which they produced. And that's exactly what Nintendo's doing here with the Switch 2. The Switch 2 is not really that much of an upgrade compared to the Switch. It really isn't. Most people cannot tell the difference between an LCD and an OLED display, and that's why I believe Nintendo opted for the LCD display for the Switch 2. You would think that they've already made the OLED display switch, that they would already stick with that moving forward, but no, Nintendo know that most people don't care, and most people don't know the difference. So they know by releasing this with the LCD display that they can come around 2 years later and say, here's the Switch 2 OLED, and people like me are gonna go and run and buy it because we wish to have an OLED Switch 2 from day one. And I'm gonna end up spending another $400-500, $450, $500, at least $500. Maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if they marketed it for $550. Saying, well, it's an OLED display Switch. And then I'm gonna end up buying it just to say, hey, I have an OLED display Switch 2. It definitely is annoying, honestly, and I am not surprised at the outrage of the Nintendo community towards Nintendo. On the Nintendo's Treehouse live stream today, people were spamming in the comments, drop the price for the software. It's crazy to see that kind of reaction from Nintendo fans. I mean, listen, I'm a Nintendo fan myself. I rarely ever criticize Nintendo. I mean, I usually keep my critiques to myself. Not that I'm like scared to be vocal about it, but I'm not as passionate maybe as like other people in the Nintendo community are. However, with this, I don't know, I just felt like I had to like say my piece because it is ridiculous. The sad thing is I'm going to be pre-ordering the Switch as soon as the pre-orders are available, and I'm gonna be getting it hopefully day one, similar to how I got the regular Switch on day one. You know, but if I wasn't necessarily an avid gamer, a Nintendo gamer, or I wasn't making YouTube content, I would most likely have my reservations about upgrading to the Switch 2. I feel like maybe a lot of families in America who have children, or maybe even families across the world who have children who own the Switch might be hesitant to immediately upgrade their children to the Switch 2. I'm sure even little kids might not really know the difference. Maybe they might want to upgrade to the Switch 2 for a specific title like Mario Kart World or any other future Mario games or Nintendo games that come out. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys going to be upgrading and getting the Nintendo Switch 2? And for what reasons? And are you happy? I mean, of course, nobody's happy. I doubt I'll ever see anybody saying that he's happy giving an extra $150 to Nintendo for a slightly upgraded Switch, a console that they already own. And not only that, but there's like also so many restrictions and whatnot, but I'm gonna have to save that for another video because this is like a whole rant within itself, just about like Nintendo's business tactics and the limitation that they put on their users. It's just a lot. But anyways, this is my rant for the Nintendo Switch 2 price. I'm not happy about it, but you already know, man, day one, I'm gonna have it just like a Nintendo sheep, just like the sheep that I am. They got me in a chokehold. I'm brainwashed. It is what it is though. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.